All right, this is math 12-5, dividing rectangles into equal squares. So here we're learning two vocabulary words. We're learning columns and rows. Columns go up and down. I think of like the old kind of houses where they had those big decks out front and they had those really big, have you seen pictures of like the tall white columns that come down? So those are called columns. So my brain always thinks of these tall columns in houses that go up and down. And that helps to remind me that columns go up and down. So we'd have a column here, 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 and here. This box has 4 columns. Rows, I think of row, row, row your boat. And you have the oar that you push back and forth through the water to push you forward. So rows go sideways. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So rows go sideways, columns go up and down. You want to break this into equal squares and figure out how many squares are all. Now you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 and count that way to check it. That's totally fine. You're also going to be able to add it up in a few different ways. So for example, if you count by rows, I'm going, how many are in, let's see, how many are in this row? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. You can also do it by counting the columns, which in this case, it's a square. So guys, it's going to be equal because it's a square. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4 in this column, 4 in this column, 4 and 4, which makes 16. So all together, if you count every single little square, there should be 16 squares. So that's just to give you an idea. And then inside, okay, this is where I gave you these little squares that I know I just kind of like threw in your bags. So you're using tiles to practice. So you're deciding how many squares can cover a rectangle. So you begin by going to the outside corners. You don't want to just throw them all in the middle. And then you can count either by rows, going across, 4 plus 4 plus 4, or by columns going up and down, 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So you can either count going rows, which is across, columns, which is up and down. So here's the guided practice. You have these squares, and you could choose to count by rows. So each row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so if you count by rows, you know you have 6 plus 6 plus 6 because there's 3 rows, which by the way, this is like also the start to review for multiplication, because as you move along in 3rd grade, you're going to realize you have 3 groups of 6. So it's 6 times 3. So this is why it's really important to not just count every single square, but learn to group them so that you can see that even amounts of groups is going to be the same number no matter how you cut it. So guys, this is the big, like a step before multiplication, which you're going to start, woohoo, next year in 3rd grade. So make sure that you are not, please, just counting every single square. Take your time to look at it by groups. 6 plus 6 is 12, plus another 6 is 18. Okay, or you could do it by columns. So if you move all of these out, you can start 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have 3 squares in each column. So I'm going to do 3 plus, here's another column, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6, 6. You'll see the patterns. Now, if you want to go back and count every single one to make sure it's 18, that's a great way to check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 15, 16, 17, 18. So that's a great way to check, but I do want your brains to start working on those even groups. So, do you understand? How can you use tiles to divide a rectangle into equal squares? Well, go back up here and use this vocabulary. It's telling about how you can cover a rectangle, and you can cover it and count by either rows, or you can cover it and count by columns. Okay? So those are the vocabulary words you want to use down here, is show that you can count it by rows or columns. All right, so the independent practice. These squares are what fits into this. So my thing is keep them as close to you can as the sides and line them up as carefully as you can. Okay, these squares specifically are for the size on this worksheet, which is why I want you to take them home. Okay, then what I would do is draw a line, and you have your first column. So you can actually see the squares. Or you can build out the whole thing. I don't know that you all have enough to do that with. So this is one way that you can actually, and I can make a little line even between each square so you can see where each one, and then you build the next one and count it up, okay? So it takes a little while, but it's fun. It's building. I mean, you know, kind of like Legos. So I like it. On the back side, Lisa bakes cornbread. She divides it into equal square pieces. How many equal pieces are there? Show 2 number sentences to show your work. So when you're counting by rows, you're counting across. Remember, rows go side to side, like row your boat. When you're counting by columns, you're counting up and down because columns go up and down. So you'll see that there's different groups and different equal parts in each group. But either way, it's the same piece of cornbread. When you count, these two sums should be equal. If they're not equal, something went wrong. Recount it. Okay, Chan divided a rectangle into equal squares. He counted the squares by rows. He also counted by columns. What could the rectangle look like? So if he counted 5 plus 5, which one of these shows 5 plus 5? And 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. So you're going to look for one of these squares that can be counted by rows one way, columns the other way, and make both of these true. Down here is super fun because you get to draw the square. So you draw the square. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay. Divide it into equal squares. What do you notice about the numbers of rows and columns? I am going to say the big word here is square. I don't want a rectangle. I want a square, which means equal, even sides. So this, not a square. This is a rectangle because 2 sides are longer than 2 other sides. This on the front is a square. Equal sides. So when you cut in a square, you should notice something that's different about a square from a rectangle. All right, have fun.